Good evening, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the regular board meeting of July 17th, 2018. I would like to call the meeting to order. With that, I would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Liz Smith, absent.
Okay.
Mr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mr. Paul? Here. Andrea Voorhees?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Lilly's here. Mr. Cole?
Here. Okay, I'm looking for approval of the agenda.
Agenda?
Yes.
I just have one new item to add to the bills tonight, and that's the list of bills dated 7/17/18, and I believe that was on your computer.
Very good. All right, looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
A motion, looking for support?
Support.
I have support by Mr. Roman, Mr. Powell, I beg your pardon. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's have. Moving on to item 5, public comment. Public comment, you're allowed to come up for 3 minutes, discuss whatever topic you'd like. Generally, what's not on the agenda, because what is on the agenda, we generally have a time frame to speak about at that point in time. So does anyone have anything to say? Yes, sir. You need to identify yourself for the recording.
Certainly. I'm Tom Weisman. I live at 7647 Cedar Creek. I'm here representing the Huron Valley Board of Education. I'm the treasurer of the Board of Education. I have 2 items that I would like to share with our township officials. The first is a resolution that was passed by our Board of Education at the regular scheduled meeting in June. Support for local millages resolution. Whereas the Huron Valley School District lies within the communities of Highland, Milford, and White Lake, whereas the communities, government entities, and first responders of Milford, Highland, and White Lake continuously support Huron Valley schools by providing resources, training, educational and safety demonstrations, interactive programs, and safety services. Where it is beneficial to the students of Huron Valley schools to have strong communities with well-funded services and facilities, and whereas it is in the best interest of Huron Valley schools and their host communities to continuously work to improve their relationships and support each other's initiatives for improvements. Therefore, be it resolved that the Huron Schools Board of Education moves to publicly support the passage of Milford Township's Fire Services Millage, Highland Township's Fire Department Millage, Library Millage, and Police Services Millage Renewal, and the White Lake Township's Police Millage Renewal, Fire Millage Renewal, and the Library Millage Renewal. And that was passed unanimously by the Huron Valley Board of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Support.
The second item is addressed once again to our township officials, directly to Supervisor Mr. Colwell. As you probably know, vaping in our community is a serious problem, excuse me, especially as it pertains to students. Not only does vaping have negative health consequences, it also causes more suspensions, which results in lost learning opportunities and poor grades for some students. Consequently, the Village of Milford recently passed a vaping ordinance that includes fines for vaping retailers selling to minors and minors in possession. In addition, Milford Township will discuss doing the same at its next meeting. For the benefit of our students, at our next board meeting, Huron Valley plans to pass an anti-vaping resolution supporting the efforts of our host communities to combat its increasing use amongst minors, being that student safety and health are top district priorities. If White Lake currently is considering, or in the future considers a similar ordinance or ordinances, be assured that the Huron Valley Schools and its Board of Education will support any effort to protect the safety and well-being of the children of this community. As always, mutual support and understanding are appreciated. Working together benefits our entire Huron Valley community. Thank you sincerely, Jeffrey Long, Huron Valley School District Board of Education President, and Nancy Karate, Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And-
you.
And as a note on that, I generally don't respond to public comment, but just for your information, we are reviewing an ordinance, in the process of reviewing an ordinance. And the chief, myself, and soon the council will be looking at that.
Thank you, and if there's anything we can do,
Very good, thank you.
yep, appreciate it.
Okay, anyone else? Public comment? Yes.
Sherry Keller, 4606 Grass Lake Road, White Lake. I fell off my seat when I heard the township supervisor admit to doing some conniving in Lansing to obtain $1.5 million in grants during the May board meeting. I was appalled when in June this board unanimously passed the first resolution to use one of these grants without question or comment. The second resolution was also unanimously passed with only one comment and only one question regarding the project start date. Your lack of concern about the combined grants falling $750,000 short of the projected $2.25 million cost of the project is disturbing, given that your own parking lot came in over budget. And it didn't go through wetlands or the property of residents who may stand on the Fifth Amendment, forcing you to invoke eminent domain, which could lead to costly trials. The supervisor gave personal property damage, accidents, and a fatality as reasons. The section of Grass Lake Road leading to the neighborhood where his brother, Senator Mike Kowal, has a home, needs to be straightened and paved. The township responded to a FOIA regarding the personal damage dollar amounts for that section of the road by stating there is no known report by the township to have this information. The township sent the property damage incident report on Grass Lake Road as a spreadsheet, and from that report, these are the incidents the police reports revealed did not happen on that section of Grass Lake Road you plan to straighten. These are the 6 incidents that did happen. I did not find the police reports for incidents listed prior to 2004, nor for a careless driving citation incident in 2007. I do not think that straightening this road will prevent a 17-year-old boy who is upset with his girlfriend from turning off West Meadow at 3 a.m., power braking, losing control of his vehicle and leaving the road. A driver for choosing to leave the roadway to avoid a deer at 1 a.m. A driver from running over a raccoon. A driver from looking up at cable lines and driving off the road. Icy road conditions or snowy road conditions. I did not find a fatality on this section of Grass Lake Road from the data you provided. Late in the June meeting, the township supervisor told of 2 projects, one at Bogey and Cooley Lake Roads and another at Union and Elizabeth Lake Roads, that we have to chase the money for because it's not going to come to us, yet we already have 2 grants. This board has a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of this township. I implore you to act on it. You should not involve yourselves in the misappropriation of funds that were obtained through conniving and Lansing to straighten and pave the section of the road leading to the neighborhood where Senator Mike Kowal and County Commissioner Eileen Kowal have a home. Public corruption in this state is said to run deep at every level, and we don't need it here.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Public comment?
Ralph Keller, 4606 Grass Lake Road. I'd like to start to remind the board, when acting in the interests of White Lake Township, they have the fiduciary responsibility to all the citizens of White Lake Township, not just their friends and families. Since I knew little about any of the trustees, I did some research. I discovered that Mr. Powell is a civil engineer. I also found an interview he did in 2012 with Patch, a news media website. Mr. Powell said, quote, "As a civil engineer, I believe my professional experience has helped improve the local services and infrastructure of White Lake. I have 30 years experience in sewer and water systems, stormwater runoff, soil erosion control, road design, maintenance, traffic flow, and safety," end quote. I find it perplexing that the resident expert on infrastructure would not be present at the board meeting when voting on how to use $1.5 million in grants for infrastructure improvements. In regard to the resolutions 18-015 and 18-007, you plan to use $1.5 million on a part of a road that services less than 100 households in a community of over 31,000 residents. At the June meeting, Rick claimed, quote, "There's an extremely limited line of sight which has resulted in a number of people's mirrors getting ripped off, and the list goes on, and if you read the reports," end quote. I read the police reports between 2004 and 2017. I did not see one report where mirrors were ripped off people's or vehicles. Rick talked about the list the road commission had that included Grass Lake Road. The only list I found dealing with the gravel roads in Oakland County was in a link in a story posted in the May 18, 2018 edition of the Oakland Press titled Road Commission for Oakland County Identifies Top 30 Gravel Road Segments. Grass Lake Road is not on that list, yet 4 other gravel roads in White Lake are. Rick mentions a fatality a number of years ago, yet offers no documentation to that statement. The fatality in the documentation he provided in the FOIA request happened in 2007 on Ormond Road. My gut feeling on this matter, not based on any provable facts, but my own opinion, is that State Senator Mike Cole called his little brother and said, "I secured a high priority grant through the legislature. Use the money to get Grass Lake Road paved in my neighborhood." But the fact is, Rick said, he did some conniving and lancing to get the grants. In closing, I'll refer to an article in the July 17, 2018 edition of the Oakland Press in which U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, Matthew Snyder, said, "Those who hold the public's offices and use them for their own personal gain and enrichment should be aware. We will uncover your crimes and hold you fully accountable for your breach of public trust." Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comment? Okay. Closing public comment. Going on to the consent agenda. Mr. Lilly.
The only additional to the consent agenda is the new list of bills. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the new list of bills.
Very good. I have a motion. Looking for support?
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 7. We have a presentation. We have a life-saving award. Chief?
Early in the way. Officer Merceros, you want to come on up? Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. First off, I want to, it's my 14th wedding anniversary today. So I want to tell my wife, Vicki, I love you. All right, on to the good stuff. I apologize, I don't have my glasses, so I may be squinting a bit. June 11th, 2018, at approximately 12:38 in the afternoon, Officer Chris Maceros was dispatched to the 200 block of Hurondale Drive for a report of a female subject who was passed out in her vehicle, which was in the roadway. Upon his arrival to the scene, which was less than 2 minutes, which is a great response time, and I think it had a lot to do with saving her life. Upon his arrival to the scene, he observed Catherine Pulowski slumped over the center console of her vehicle. Ms. Pulowski was not breathing and had no pulse. Officer Maceros took immediate action. He pulled Ms. Pulowski from her vehicle, laid her on the ground, and initiated CPR, continuing life-saving efforts, unassisted, for well over 3 minutes, almost 4 minutes, until members of Star EMS and the White Lake Township Fire Department arrived on scene to take over advanced life-breathing support. Star EMS transported Ms. Pulowski to Huron Valley Hospital for further medical intervention. It is my belief that Officer Maceros' quick thinking and actions provided the life-saving measures needed to keep Catherine Pulowski alive until advanced life support could arrive on scene and intervene. For that reason, I hereby award Officer Christopher Maceros this life-saving award.
I'm her husband. Thank you very much. I'm very honored.
This is Jim. This is
Yeah, I'm her husband.
yep. Did you want to say a few words or?
Just very timely, disciplined action. I couldn't believe it. It's just very timely. By the time I sprinted over there to the neighbor, Officer Maceros was already on top of her, giving her deep, wide, continuous CPR, and EMS showed up another 4 minutes. And she also benefited from therapeutic hypothermia at the Huron Valley. So she's coming around. She's in basically a minimal conscious state right now at the Select Care over at St. Joe's. Very hopeful. Very hopeful.
So glad
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to the item 8, minutes. Looking for approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 12th.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, Mr. Bell.
Prior to a motion to approve the minutes, and I'll provide these to the clerk's office. I didn't find anything yet until I got to page 6 under executive session, C, executive session. And it's just to clarify it a little bit, doesn't change any of the voting. As you recall, I was late to the meeting last month, and I was able to come into the executive session, and it actually identifies that Trustee Powell supported the first motion after coming back into regular session. So from there down, there should be 7 votes, and I did vote yes on the roll call vote on the first one as well. So the clerk's office can adjust that.
Very good.
So with that change, if there was nothing else, I recommend approval, or I approve the minutes as amended.
Amy, do you have that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and approval. Who made the
Support.
motion? Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's have it. Moving on to 9A, Resolution 18017 AT&T Metro Act Permit Extension.
So this is a resolution which authorizes an extension of the Metro Act permit that AT&T applied for and received back in 2003. It was a 5-year unilateral Metro Act permit. They have since extended it 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the 5th time of an extension. I did ask that they provide updated route maps, just because so much time has lapsed, as well as updated certificates of insurance. I did receive an email indicating that they would provide that information. Because the Metro Act requires you to take action within 45 days of receipt, I added in the resolution a condition of approval is the receipt of those 2 documents. I would recommend that the Township Board approve the resolution approving the extension subject to, all of the conditions listed in the resolution, which includes receipt and review of the updated route maps and certificates of insurance. They're really, if you remember when the Metro Act came out in 2002, there's very little you can do with regard to Metro Act permits, and this is it for the benefit of the public. It's the right to use the public rights of ways for utilities. Specifically, the Metro Act deals with telecommunication. And so it's the telephone lines that run in the public rights of ways, and they've been in place. They continue to be in place. There's no request to extend them, and if in fact they do want to extend them, they would have to pull whatever construction permits and post whatever bond is required by the township. So this is really status quo.
Mr. Roman.
Mr. Lilly,
Oh, I
did
beg
you?
your pardon.
Go ahead. I just ready to make a motion.
Make a motion, Mr.
Go right ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 18017, to approve a 5-year extension that will expire 2023, conditioned on the receipt of the right-of-way map and certificate of insurance and any other listed condition, and authorize, upon receipt of those, authorize the supervisor to sign.
Very good. I have a motion.
I'll support.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. 9B, Resolution 18-018, Parks and Recreation Millage Ballot Proposal. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. At the February 7th Parks and Recreation meeting, the committee made a motion to recommend that the board place a .3 millage question on the November ballot. This is something that I believe you are all aware of. However, today would be the appropriate day to take action if you so choose to place this on the ballot. And so before you, you have resolution and their Exhibit A, which is the proposed language for this question, is in your packet on page 2. This was prepared by Foster Swift, and Jason assisted them with this, but it's effectively a 6-year millage that will collect $336,000 in its first year, approximately. And you have that information in front of you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer it.
Very good. Any of the board members have a question?
As the Parks and Rec liaison, we actually need this. We haven't had a millage, and yeah, I'm drawing a blank on when we had it last, but we have a slim budget. We are good fiduciary people with it, and we want to continue with just a small budget to continue on with the parks.
Very good. Any questions or comments? Yes?
If I can just make a comment, I don't know if your packet was assembled like mine, but Exhibit A comes before the resolution, just so that it's clear, this resolution is 2 pages, and Exhibit A, which is the actual language, is Exhibit A to the resolution. So approving the resolution approves the attachment, which is the Exhibit A.
Exactly.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Council. Any questions?
No, just go ahead.
I'd just like to say I'm happy to see it's on the November election, so
Yeah, it
great, I'm
will be on
in favor of that.
Yes.
I was just going to clarify that, just for the public, that this is on the November, not to confuse with the current millages. That's all. I was just going to clarify the same thing.
Yes.
I too am in favor of this. I'm a major proponent of pathways, and this is the way that we can have monies to match grants from the state. And I will be supporting this because it is going to be placed on the November ballot, not on a primary ballot that I'm opposed to. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Very good. Any other comments? And indeed, this is a direction of which I believe the township should consider going in. I believe it was 2008 or 2010 that the last, or it
think it
expired in
expired in
2012.
12.
That's what it
Yes.
was,
It
expired
was
in
like
12.
I believe.
So Parks and Rec has been operating without any additional income fund for some time, and still has a decent fund balance, although it does limit the ability as to what can be done. And in particular, with us trying to pursue grants and other funds from Lansing for the acquisition of the park, it would be nice to be able to have some millage money where if we acquire the park, if all goes well, we have the ability to develop it into something that our residents can enjoy.
Yeah.
So it would just make things a whole lot simpler if we had some money in the coffers. And it would allow us the opportunity to have that money to pursue, to go after grants.
I would say Bloomer Park is a fine example of what has been done with those dollars. An acquisition of state park property, and then an application, successful application to the Natural Resources Trust Fund for a grant to develop that property. Hidden Pines Park and facilities at that park, behind Dublin, at the new baseball facility, the new pavilion, the pathway that runs near the river toward Lowe's to make that connection, the future pathway connection that'll be made at by Fisk Farm at Fisk Road and 59. I mean, there are several things that are going on. The recent grant application for land acquisition down off of Elizabeth Lake Road, the Pollock property that this board supported a couple of meetings ago, that will take a great deal of the remaining fund balance to match that grant if we're fortunate enough to be recipients of it in December or January. So there are many things still on the horizon, and we're making good progress, but that doesn't happen without considerable community investment in these community facilities. So
And we've been able to get some very successful grant matches.
we have.
Very successful. So, okay, I'm looking for a motion. Mr.
Make a
Lilly.
motion to approve Resolution 18018, authorize 6-year millage collection for Parks and Rec, and to be placed on a November ballot.
A motion, looking for support?
I'll support that.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
9C, Resolution 18-019, White Lake Charter Township Dissemination Agreement. This is an agreement between Budzinski and Company and Municipal Financial Advisors and the township to act as a sort of a financial watchdog reporting person with direct relationship with the library bond. Mr. Roman?
Yeah, there's online filings that need to take place annually. Benzinski and Associates has that expertise, and so by approving this 5-year agreement, It will enable Benzinski to complete all of the electronic filing requirements.
Very good. Any questions by the board members?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, sir.
I did note that this agreement can be terminated by either party with 30 days written notice, which is a good thing in case something comes up, so I appreciate that.
Correct. Although these are requirements that this reporting has to be done.
Yes.
And it is going to be part of the cost to the library to pay for this service as part of the ongoing cost related to the bond.
Okay, good.
So,
Thank you.
all right. Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion to support resolution,
1-8.
I have to find the number.
18019.
19.
I clicked out of it, excuse me, 1 second. Sorry about that.
Is there a resolution?
Is it?
Is there
let's see.
actually a resolution? Because I don't have one in my packet.
Resolution 18019.
That's a good question. Yeah, right there on the top. You had me going there for a second. Thank you. I have a motion, looking for support. Support. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. Thank you very much. Got it? Okay. We're moving on to 9D, resolution number 18-020, Cooley Lake Goose Nest Egg Destruction 2018 to 2022. Mr. Lilly.
This request was given to our office from a gentleman from Cooley Lake. Evidently, they're having a bad problem with a swan over there that keeps picking on the neighbors and his own kids. And they've asked the board to pass a resolution, which is Resolution 18020, for a 5-year resolution to make application to the DNR to take care of their problems over there.
Okay, any questions on this by the board members?
I do. I have some questions. The resident's request is regarding one swan, but this resolution was drafted about Canadian geese, which to my knowledge are not the same thing. So the resolution doesn't match the resident's request. And I'd like to hear from more residents on this lake. We're a lake community and swans live here. It's their home. The resolution talks about egg destruction and nest destruction, but the request from the resident is they would like the swan removed from the lake or destroyed.
Mr. Lilly has some further information that he had a conversation with the DNR regarding this particular process.
Okay, I would
I did in
appreciate
fact
some
talk to the
additional
lady at the
information.
DNR office, DEQ office in regards to this, and evidently they have, the resolution covers both the nest destruction, whatever, and the application for this one.
Removal of
removal,
problematic
so.
animals. Okay. And this just allows the resolution
And
to go
they do have
forward.
to go through a process
The permit has to be approved.
with the permit application. This just a request to, the resolution has to come prior to the request for the
Correct.
permit.
Is there a request from a lake association or just one resident?
This request here?
Yeah, this
Looks like
request is
just-
just from one resident. Is there a lake association on?
I'm here. Can I answer some questions for you?
You only
Sure.
got one moment, but you'll, okay.
Go ahead, let the
You
resident.
need, yes,
talk.
sir, go ahead. You had to identify.
Over there, over here.
If you speak loud enough, but I think the microphone would be good because he can't pick you up on the,
So my name's Gary Ilson. I'm a resident on 9018 Cooley Lake Road. And what it is it's a mute swan. We have several swans on our lake, several ducks, probably, if I had to guess, 10 different swans and babies and all kinds of stuff. We don't have any problems with any wildlife on our lake except one mute swan. It is an invasive species. It is not something that is protected. Back in 2012, the state of Michigan asked that 15,000 of them be destroyed. They're ruining certain fish and plants that the fish eat in the lakes, et cetera, et cetera. And what it is this one swan, which we're asking to be removed, however, you see fit, is
is scaring the kids to the point where they won't go by the lake, they won't go on a wave runner. The swan will come across the lake and attack the wave runner. So the kids are having to put both legs on one side of the wave runner to pull it onto the shore or onto a dock. It's just dangerous. And it's just one mute swan. That's all it is. And we're fine with the rest. We do not have a lake association, a homeowners association on Cooley Lake. I have talked to probably 20 or 30 different residents and asked previously, have they had a problem? They all know the swan, they have a name for the swan, but no one's come here to ask for it to be removed. And over time, their kids grow up and, they deal with it. So that's really the bottom line. It's really a danger. The swan goes on our property and all the properties, and they just hang out and do what they do. So the kids have to avoid the beach or the lake area when that happens. But more importantly, the swan will attack a wave runner and whoever's on that wave runner. And there's kids constantly riding wave runners on the lakes, and they're afraid. So that's why I thought I would ask for this permission to have it removed.
So, Terry, does the DNR require board action for them to assess this lake issue? Does it require
Did I ask the DNR too?
Does the DNR require our board action? Can the DNR go out themselves and decide how to handle this?
If you want to amend the resolution, you can do whatever you'd like on that, but the resolution has to follow any permit application that they make.
There were two ways to get the permit to remove that swan. One was to get 70% of the homeowners on a petition to sign, but it would take a really long time to go to each house and ask each person. The second way was to ask you for permission to contact the DNR and have them instruct us how to remove it or have them remove it. We're open. We'll pay a company or whatever we have to do. We're not asking for it to be destroyed. We just don't want it on our lake. So however I don't know how they do all that. This was the first step, so.
Okay, because in your request, you're asking for it to be destroyed.
Yeah, I think it said on their paperwork that they would destroy it because it's an invasive species and they don't want to save it. I'm saying personally, it doesn't matter to me what happens to it. I'm not saying I'm asking it to be destroyed. It just can't be on our lake. It's a danger to our residents. That's really the bottom line. So, and there's many documented cases in the state of Michigan where the mute swan has attacked people and broke their arm with their wing, et cetera, et cetera. I looked them all up, it's just not a healthy situation on our lake. That's really the bottom. It takes the fun away for the kids. They're afraid of one animal, and that's what it is.
Okay, thank you for the information.
Welcome.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Supervisor, a community that I represent, the Village of Wolverine Lake, has dealt with this almost annually. They used to have a tremendous problem with mute swans, and the DEQ does control in that they don't allow total destruction of all the swans on the lake, just key ones, and they allow them to be limited to a certain number. So the stories, much like what was told, were very prevalent on Wolverine Lake until, in fact, the mute swans were controlled a little bit more, and now it's a much more peaceful lake. So I'm certainly going to be in favor of this resolution and let the DEQ then decide how to deal with it.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Well, I would also prefer that the DNR decides how to handle this. We're not experts to tell them how to handle it, so I think the resolution perhaps needs to be reworded a little bit. And I guess according to Terry, that a Canadian goose and a swan is interchangeable because the resolution says a Canada goose.
Why don't you make a motion to make the modification for a dangerous mute swan and make it a requirement that the DNR representative determine the appropriate response.
I think that would be wiser, and I also would prefer, maybe the swan is relocated.
That won't be our call.
Yeah, but that's what this says. This is making it our call that we kill the swan. So I think
problem
think
with
that should be the
relocating them.
DNR's
They come
call.
back like the
Yeah.
geese do, and so they'll just come right back again.
I think we should just reword this so the experts decide how to handle it, and
Well, there's a permit that has to be sought after this
Right.
resolution, and that permit will be the
It doesn't
ultimate.
actually say destruction of the animal on this resolution, right?
it
Not on the
does.
on the
It says
resolution.
Talking
where-
about
yeah, right
nest
here.
and egg destruction, not a live animal.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely.
Correct.
I would recommend that if you want to change it, just put the removal of basically a rogue mute swan. And I guess we could put that on there.
So it has nothing to do with nest egg.
So I would just prefer that the resolution is amended for the DNR to defer to their expertise.
So you want to tweak the resolution? Mm-hmm. All right, so then you probably need to modify, you're saying modify paragraph 1, because that's the paragraph, right? So it says, Cooley Lake homeowners are requesting authorization for a Canada goose nest and egg destruction permit on Cooley Lake. Is that the paragraph you want changed?
Not a Canadian goose.
It's not a Canadian goose that they're concerned about, it's a mute swan.
But Terry said he called them and they said it's interchangeable,
okay.
but if you're more comfortable changing it, you can do that too. It's your motion.
Well, it's just silly for us to vote on something that's not
This is
accurate.
their, what they call their generic resolution that they provide to everybody to make these type of applications. So
Okay, gotcha.
whatever the
So
board
the
wishes.
Canada goose nest and egg destruction permit allows them to move forward with swans and relocation, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
It's kind of
Okay.
it's kind of a boilerplate
Okay,
resolution. They're not going to make necessarily one for every species or every problem they have. Like, that's the explanation Mr. Lilly received. Correct?
We can amend the resolution.
And keep in mind, this is a 5-year permit.
What do you want to do? You want to amend it?
I would like to amend it because it just doesn't match what
Go ahead and do it.
what
Go
we're
ahead and
doing.
do it. Make a suggestion.
So I would like to amend paragraph 1, instead of Canada goose, we would put in mute swan. I don't know if there's a goose problem on the lake as well, but
You basically
Sir,
want
do you
to,
have a problem with Canadian geese as well?
I do not. That was just a document that the DNR provided, like Mr. Lilly had said. There wasn't one exclusively for mute swan, but we have ducks, geese, and mute swans on our lake, all of which are not dangerous except for one mute swan, like you were saying, and it's a huge problem. We're not going to destroy any eggs. We're not going to destroy any nests. We're not going to interfere with any other animals on that lake but this one dangerous swan. And I absolutely positively will do exactly what the DNR does. It's not something I do. Even if they were to say to me, we grant you permission to destroy that dangerous mute swan, I personally wouldn't be the one doing it. I'm just going to let you know. We would hire a company that does this, or whoever the DNR tells me to call. We would gladly pay them out of our pocket to handle it exactly the way they want to handle it. That document, and Mr. Lilly can confirm, was just on the DNR's website. That's exactly what they told me. You know, I called everybody I needed to call, and that's what they told me to submit to you. So yeah, the wording is a little strange, but they don't put, I guess they don't make a document for each particular goose, swan, species, animal. This is just the one. So if I'm right, this will just give me permission to contact the DNR to say the city council has given me permission to remove it, and the DNR would then follow through with however they do it. I couldn't even tell you how that is. I don't know.
Okay, I think what we'll do here quickly, we'll just make it real simple. Cooley Lake homeowners are requesting authorization for a Canada goose nest egg destruction permit on Cooley Lake, and also put an inclusive dangerous swan
Great.
removal, inclusive.
Perfect.
That way it has all the required DNR wording, just a
Right.
little additive to it.
Okay.
Can I just make an observation reading this? This doesn't say anything about your swan. This talks about the nest and the eggs. Nothing about the swan being removed.
Right, that's what I'm
Right, but
saying,
that's
your
their
request
form
doesn't match.
they use.
The form and the request isn't,
Yeah, I handed in, I don't have a copy of it,
Okay.
but I had given Terry a
Yeah, we
copy
can-
of it.
We can tweak that
Yeah,
resolution.
well, just,
tomorrow.
that's why I'm saying, put it on there at the end of that, just removal of the moot swan.
Add it in, but I would not change the wording that says it's an authorization for a Canada goose nest
I
and
wouldn't
egg
change that.
destruction permit.
I wouldn't change that. I would just add in,
Do you see what I'm saying?
correct.
Yeah.
Nest and egg destruction,
Correct.
no removal of,
But that's why I would add to that, and removal of the moot swan, problematic moot swan.
That works for me.
Okay.
Yep.
And removal of problematic
Good with that?
moot swan. Fair enough? Looking for a motion to approve?
Mr. Supervisor, I move the resolution 18020 as amended.
I
Motion,
think we already have a
support?
motion of support on the table.
Well, we amended it,
We
though.
amended
We just
it.
amended it, so that's what I'm saying, looking for, it's as amended. So, looking for support?
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna
Opposed?
vote. I'm gonna oppose this just because this resolution doesn't make sense.
All right, moving on to the next item.
Although I'd like everyone to be safe on the lake, I have that copy, but this resolution is just a mess.
She'll be out to help you this weekend. Get rid of it.
Resolution 9E, it'll be 18-021. It's a resolution for opposition for the tax and the local government, the residents for the proposed regional transit authority, which could very well be in jeopardy. However, the simple fact that if you look at what is proposed by the RTA, that at the end of the day, over a 20-year period, they would have siphoned off $33,609,620 of White Lake Township's money, and we won't receive so much as a bicycle.
Right,
I like that term, siphoned off.
yeah.
And I have a real problem with that. Now, if I'm not going to get into what we could do if we had our own millage, what we could do for our own little regional transit authority. We could do one heck of a system. But nonetheless, this is just a voice of the system that will allow this township to voice its opinion that we are not in favor of that. And that is our resolution 18-021. Any questions from the board? Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 18. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I've got all this stuff on my desk now, so we'll kind of, is that better? Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right. No other no questions? Anybody? Okay. All right. Looking for a motion? Oh, yes, Jean-Luc.
Jean-Philippe Leuve, 247 Rosary Lane. I'm curious to understand what that means for, it would be a millage. What would that represent for, let's say, 100,000, 200,000, whatever, a typical house or a number?
We do have some numbers broken down, but it's basically 1.5 mils. So if you look at that, it'd be $150 per year for 20 years on a $100,000 house. And we don't get anything out of it. Not even a connector.
I agree with the general tone of what you're trying to say. Because of my French experience, I came from a small town which was roughly, say, half hour away from the big city. And there wasn't necessarily much transit. But one thing that we had is that at the entrance of the big city, instead of going downtown, getting stuffed in the traffic, you had some satellite parking lots. And that would be able to get a tram or a bus, get to downtown and back, included in the ticket. So there might be some better plans that they need to pick.
Well, that's the whole idea, is to send a message that they need to come up with a better mousetrap. So, okay, where were we?
I'll make a motion.
Made motion, looking for support? Support. Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. And we are moving down to
F.
another resolution 18-022, the 123.net Metro Act permit. Counselor?
This is a little bit different than the AT&T Metro Act permit extension you considered earlier in the evening. This is actually a new provider. Their name is 123.net Inc., doing business as 123net. They are looking to construct new telecommunication facilities in the township's public right-of-way. As I indicated earlier, you have 45 days to approve or deny, but you can't deny unless you have a valid reason, and frankly, there's very little valid reason to deny a telecommunication provider to use the rights-of-way that other providers are using. They pay a one-time $500 application fee, which they have paid. They submit a route map, which gives you really an idea, which is attached as Exhibit A to the Metro Act permit, and as you can see, it essentially runs all along M59 in the township. I do understand that they plan to go underground for their facilities. They are also required to post a bond and or pull whatever permits are required under our other ordinances. The only issue is we cannot charge them any fees. The statute, when it was approved, said $500 for first-time providers, period. That's all as it relates to these permits. Since we did already receive the check, and we have a permit draft, there are no conditions really left that I'm concerned about, at least, for approval of this Metro Act permit.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Powell?
Just wondered if the attorney has any idea how this is going to benefit White Lake Township if all they want to do is transfer from one side of the township to the other. How is this going to provide any services to White Lake residents?
Well, their application is to provide services to White Lake residents.
So their only right-of-way, however, they're asking for is along M59.
Along M59.
Not all of us live along M59, though.
Well, no, and frankly, if you look at AT&T's Metro Act permit, it's not along every right-of-way either.
It's not called the DOT corridor.
Yes, but I believe that follows, AT&T is virtually on every pole in the township as well, so it kind of incorporates that, where this one here, they're not asking for a pole co-location. Interesting.
All I can say is if this in any way, shape, or form provides more competition within that industry, bring it on.
Bring it on.
I'm with you.
So, okay, any questions?
The term is quite long. This is basically 30 years. Is that normal?
So there are two MPSC approved forms, or at least they used to be called MPSC Safe Harbor forms. One's a bilateral permit form, which is a 15-year term. One's a unilateral permit form, which is a 5-year term. Really, the provider chooses which one. They have used one of the two standard forms that have been approved across the state, and they have chosen the 15-year term. But if you look at AT&T, they chose the 5-year, and we've extended it every couple years. So, I mean, once they install the facilities, they really don't want to then have to remove it.
Yeah, right.
Very good. Okay. Looking for a motion?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 18022.
Looking for support?
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Supported. Supported.
Mike did. Yeah. New business, 10A, appointment of Roseanne, I can't say this right, I don't want to say it, Fela, and Jan Gross, and Karen Law to the Senior Advisory Council.
Supervisor, I have the opportunity to sit every quarter with the ladies at the Dublin Center to listen to their concerns about the center, the direction, and to provide some input to the board. And both these three ladies have given of themselves the time and the efforts to do so. So my recommendation would be to appoint Roseanne, Jen, and Karen again to the Senior Advisory Council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, looking for, is that a motion?
It's a motion.
It's a motion, looking for support?
I'll support that.
Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, thank you very much. 10B, Aspen Meadows Phase 2 Planned District Development Agreement. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. This is the last step in the process for approval of a PD. In this case, it's Aspen Meadows Phase 2. I believe you're all familiar with this project. It is the second phase of Aspen Meadows 1. There are 38 units, 39 units, growing right before our eyes. The Planning Commission at their meeting of June 21st considered this development agreement and recommended approval with some conditions that are within your packet. I want to mention a couple of them. In particular, there's a natural buffer on the east side of this site, and in the minutes it refers to lots 94, 95, 96, 105, 106, and 107. And the Planning Commission is recommending that plaques or signage be added to designate that this is a natural area and it's not to be disturbed, and all the vegetation is to remain. So that way in the future, residents don't extend their backyards into this area and start removing trees and things like that that are an important buffer. In addition, an exhibit be added to the condominium documents that specifically deals with this particular area, and it also has requested that a rendering or a sheet in the plans be included that will show what the signs look like, so there is no confusion. The development agreement needs to also reflect that the Township Board has waived the traffic impact study and the community impact statement, which you have already dealt with but needs to be reflected in the agreement. And Mr. Joe Kosick, who is a developer, is sitting to my left and would be happy, I'm sure, to answer any questions you might have. But this, again, is the last step in the approval process through boards and commissions, and now we'll finish with them, if it's approved tonight, wrap up the approval of the engineering documents as well as this this development agreement. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Mr. Powell.
Probably the only question I have, first of all, did the drawings themselves get scanned in to our electronic file? Because I didn't find them in my electronic set.
The site plans are, it's just a development agreement before you. The site plans not,
Reduced and put on there.
I didn't
so you're
see
saying
it.
are they in your packets?
That's correct.
No.
I was wondering about that, only because I was trying to find precisely where lots 94 through 107 are.
Well, let me show you.
And this is just a question of my colleagues on the board here. My experience is that when property owners get into the development and buy their homes, a sign in the middle of their backyard or on the property lines either gets covered over, pulled out, or just totally ignored. And I wanted to ask Sean, are these fairly prominent wetlands that we would call wetlands, or is it just a field area to be preserved? Or it looks like the Planning Commission is recommending that there be something there to safeguard that buffer to the wetland areas.
It is a stand of woods.
It's a stand of woods.
The homes to the east are at a much lower elevation, possibly 20 feet, 25 feet lower. And so this kind of hillside, I'll describe it as, is fairly significantly wooded. And so they would like that area to be, they're able to walk in it and enjoy it, but they can't remove vegetation. So it is an attempt to delineate that area so that no tree trimming or cutting goes on. Obviously, the neighbors are aware that these homes, while on community water, are on a septic system. And so significant clearing will need to happen for the septic system.
Yes.
This is the Planning Commission packet, and I'll zoom in a little bit here, if it cooperates. And I don't have the right tool up here, but okay. So it's basically these 6 homes.
Okay.
94, so you can see 94, 95, 96, 105, 106, 107. So they don't need to be every 5 feet or anything, but along this area there need to be a few signs that, similar to what was done in Ivy Glen.
Yep.
If those of you who remember approving Ivy Glen, there are signs on a 4x4. You can see them. They're probably about the size of a half a sheet of paper that delineate the edge of a conservation area, so there's no tree trimming or clearing in that area. It's just left in a natural state, and that's really what the Planning Commission's after here. And again, it's these homes, and there are only a handful that are adjacent, but they could certainly be impacted if this is all cleared. So it's this strip of land right here on the east side that we're talking about.
Well, I think controlling the destruction of vegetation is relatively easy to identify. If somebody hears chainsaws and things like that going off, certainly somebody's going to mention something. But if this were a wetland area, I was going to suggest we actually put a split rail fence along those rear property lines to keep filling and everything from being dumped into the wetland areas. But I like what the Planning Commission has come up with the plaques and signage instead. So thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Sure, and the applicant has agreed to all of these conditions, and I would say that one of the planning commissioners specifically asked that a document be added to the condominium documents, which everyone is furnished at the closing of their home. Unfortunately, not everyone reads them cover to cover, but they will be furnished a copy of the document that describes this area in greater detail so that they will have the ability to become more aware of what they are restricted from doing in this particular location. So,
Very good. Any other questions? Anyone care to make any comment regarding the project? You said it all, right?
Yeah, Sean
Okay.
said what happened at Planning Commission.
Okay. Okay, with that, looking for a motion? Did you have a question?
Where is it located?
Um,
Is it the one across from Meyer?
No.
Behind Alpine.
It's behind Alpine. It's
Hill.
the,
Oh,
if you go down Porter to Grass Lake Road, go west on Grass Lake Road, that's the original project. And this project is the second
oh, okay, thank you.
part of it, and I believe there's even potentially a future
will-
phases
I will show you.
one day, maybe,
Yeah.
depending on how things go out. I mean, it's just like any other of these developments we have that have a larger tract, the land around them, it potentially goes in phases.
So this red dot represents the Taj Mahal we all sit in at this moment. The area that we are talking about is right here. So here is Porter Road. Here is Grass Lake Road. This is Aspen Meadows Phase 1. And I think there are, 80 some odd houses there, Joe?
79, 80.
And they were built in the early 2000s. And so just to kind of zoom out a little bit, here's M59. So it's just up the road.
Oh,
And it's the ITC corridor cuts right through this parcel. And so this is that area. And if I flip back over, you can see that's, and I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit. Sure.
Okay, very good. John Luke? You have to speak up a little bit.
Yes, sorry. These neighborhoods, will they be connected to the ICT corridor in any way, or will there be any passage possibility?
No, just a crossing, easement across.
Yeah, this second phase, phase 1 was built without sidewalks. Phase 2 will have sidewalks on both sides of the street per today's ordinance. Unfortunately, the ordinances of 20 years ago didn't require that. So there'll be sidewalks cutting through along the roadside, but they don't lead really anywhere yet. Hopefully there'll be a path.
I've heard
in the
that
ITC
song
corridor.
before, haven't we? Sidewalk to nowhere?
You don't build it,
They definitely won't
they
come.
won't come. Yeah.
Okay. All right, with that being said, no more questions, looking for a motion? Terry?
Had wording.
Did you have wording or anything you want to look at?
Somebody else? Yeah, I have no other questions. So.
You good? Okay. Mr. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the planned development agreement, subject to the condition of signage being placed behind the homes identified for to identify the conservation area, and also subject to this board not requiring the development community development impact statement or a traffic impact study be done. Anything else?
The condominium docs, I mean, you could just say subject to planning commission
Planning commission
recommendation.
approval of the condominium documents.
And review, thank you. Okay, have a motion, looking for support?
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you very much. So when's the first house going to be done?
We're still finishing the last couple of days.
Okay.
The ones to the south can be ski in and ski out, you know.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to my cousin about that.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for investing in White Lake. Litigation request for ordinance violation diesel equipment repair. Well, this pigeon has come home to roost again.
I don't know what else to say. You have a memo from me, and there are violations again, similar to the ones we've previously discussed, and in a nutshell, I would like your authorization to allow the township attorney to take legal action against the owner of 8655 Highland Road for continued violations.
Mr. Hudson, do you have anything to add to this?
I have no.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. When, maybe to the attorney, at what point does the township get taken out of this and the court says, we're now going to enforce it on their own volition? Because it's really a violation of court order, and why does the township have to get involved and the court just not take over?
The court's not going to take over.
So they don't care about their own order, enforcing their own order?
I can't answer for the court, but I can tell you, virtually without a doubt, there are a lot of orders and judgments being violated on a daily basis. I can't imagine the court taking that on without somebody, without the squeaky wheel, essentially.
Incredible.
Last two times that we've gone back to court, though, there have been some financial sanctions and penalties for...
Well, she's visibly as frustrated as this township board is. I can assure you of that. When we were enforced, the last time we were in court, when we received this order, Randy kept denying that he was running a park and ride. We subpoenaed all of the truck drivers, had them come to court, and after the first witness, the judge called us to a bench conference and said to opposing counsel, are you really going to have her call every one of these people to say the same thing? So she was very frustrated. He ultimately admitted he was running a park and ride in violation of the ordinance. He was penalized for it. And for a while there, it was quiet. He wasn't doing it. And recently, it started up again. I understand Sean wrote him a letter as a courtesy. You're doing it again. We have evidence again. And he's heard nothing in response. So I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. The only good is that we've already drafted the exact same motion, so it would be a recycled motion that we filed the last time.
So we file it again, because he's violated again, and it'll take another 3 years to get a motion out of the court again for enforcement action.
Well, no.
It was only a few months, I think. Bless you.
Just
It
seems
was
like
only
they-
a couple of months, because what happens is we file the motion, and there's no testimony at that point. We make an argument to the judge. He can either admit that he's doing it, or he can ask for a hearing. Well, if he asks for a hearing, that's when we subpoena all the witnesses, and we prepare for an evidentiary hearing, and we show up in court, and we get the ball rolling, and that's when...
We could have bought the property for the amount that we spent on this project.
Healthy down payment anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
He has had to pay our fees the last...
2 times, I think. He's
Mr. Lilly.
Mr. Supervisor, this particular issue has been going on since 1992.
Yeah.
And it's got to the point on several occasions where numerous board members have done everything possible to try to help in this situation, to bring about a resolution, and all of those have failed. This is not worthy of taking up a lot of our time right now, and I'm going to make a motion to just direct the attorney to go back to court to enforce our current consent judgment. So
I have a motion, looking for support.
that's a motion.
Looking for support. Support. I have motion and support. All in favor? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Rush.
The other article is litigation request for ordinance violation parcel ... 6D120 Ormond Road. Mr. Hudson, would you care to address the board?
Good evening. I bring this before you. I've tried to work with the owner, William Kreiner Jr., at 6120 Ormond Road, reference the operation of his commercial tree business, Big Eyes Tree Service. Included in some of your packets are...
Do you want me to bring this up? Do you want
Yeah, if you want to bring it up.
I mean, I don't know if you'd wanted me to, but I'll
Sure.
scroll through it, Jason, if you tell me.
Okay. I've spoken to Mr. Kreiner. It's going on well over a year now, every couple months, with him assuring me that he will be removing his business and all the spoils from his business off his property. As we stand today, I was out there this morning, I could not even access the far back residence because of his commercial operation down there. Not only is he operating the commercial operation for the tree service, but he's also storing junk autos, boats, trailers, as well as an accumulation of trash and scrap out there. I've given him every opportunity to show me that he's willing to come into compliance, and he's failed at every turn. Yes.
Just for the benefit of the board, Jason, I don't see any of the previous letters you've written him. You've written him numerous letters.
I have, and I don't know why they're not included in there. I can provide them to the board.
But you've written numerous letters over the course of the last at least 6 months, if I recall correctly.
Yes, I have. Also, I've also been able to access the previous ordinance officer's files, and they date back to 2006 for some of the same issues that I don't know if they were not followed up on, but 2006 for storage of junk autos, all the way up through 2015 of operating the commercial business out there with no change in sight on his end. And the neighbors are calling and getting tired of having to deal with this operation out there. What you don't see in the back of in this picture here, in the back of the home, there's probably 200 or 300 40, 50-foot logs from the spoils of his business. He's owned suburban farm, 1.71 acres. He's clearly in violation of home occupation, junk autos, rubbish, you name it.
The address is Ormond Road, but that's a private drive, isn't it?
6120 Ormond Road it's a shared drive. Sean, if you want to pull up the overhead of...
Want me to go to that address?
Yeah, I think I actually included
It's in here. There's an aerial.
There's an aerial of
the last picture.
Right, but he looks like he's back on a private.
It's a private drive that the
I
three...
can only see how it touches Ormond Road.
Yeah.
Yep, three properties share that drive.
Okay.
And the individual at the very end is lucky to access his...
Go back up.
I'm sorry, what did you say, the individual?
The individual at the very end of the property is lucky to get to his home if they're working out there.
Okay, that's why I wanted to clarify,
Yeah, it's the next one. It's
that
right
you
there.
said you were there this morning and you weren't able to get to the other residents behind
They had
him?
they had a trailer full of tree stumps blocking the entire drive, so I could not get past his driveway to access the very end home.
Okay, thank you.
So you're not allowed to stack up logs on your property?
No, the home occupation ordinance states that you cannot have storage of any outdoor machinery, vehicles. I can pull it up and read it verbatim, but you can't have the spoils of your operations on site either.
Dusty Street, they call that?
Dusty Trail, that's south of there. And actually, on the way into the meeting today, they were pulling a trailer in with logs from last night's storm onto the property.
This is the second half of Ormond Road, correct? Right on
Yeah, this is north half of
Yeah.
Ormond, north of White Lake Road.
Closer to Springfield.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I see.
Here's White Lake Road.
Yeah. Makes more sense.
How long has your interaction been going on with them?
It's been well over a year with Mr. Kreiner. But I spoke to William Kreiner Sr. and William Kreiner Jr., both of which operate the business out of there.
Mr. Supervisor, I don't see where we have any alternative
Yeah,
but support our
absolutely.
residents in that area, and Mr. Hudson has done his due diligence.
Okay, Mr. Lilly.
I'll make a motion to authorize litigation to bring parcel number 1206-276-012 into compliance with township zoning ordinances.
Just so you know that our process, once my office gets authorization, we do send one final letter just to make sure we're not going to get voluntary compliance. But if there's no response to that letter, no positive response, then we do proceed with litigation once you authorize that.
I would appreciate that, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll support that, Mr. Supervisor.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, thank you very much. And next item is...
Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson, yes. 10E, request for youth assistance contribution, and I am going to introduce Gail Innes. She's with the Huron Valley Youth Assistance Group. Gail, thank you very much for coming this evening.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, as you introduced, I'm Gail Ennis, the Youth Assistance Caseworker assigned to Huron Valley Youth Assistance, which services Huron Valley School District geographic area, and I'm an employee of Oakland County Circuit Court Family Division, which is the parent program for the local program. I'm here tonight to thank White Lake Township for supporting young people in your community by the various programs and efforts that you make, and to reiterate that the youth of your township and the school district are our future. Huron Valley Youth Assistance has been co-sponsored by the townships of Milford, Highland, and White Lake, as well as the village of Milford, since 1959. Youth assistance was designed to help to reduce the incidences of juvenile delinquency, child neglect, and child abuse by strengthening youth and family through community involvement. I'd like to share with you some examples of some of the types of families that receive services from youth assistance. It was just after midnight, January 1st. A teenager is sitting in a car at the curb waiting for his friends to come out of the home where they attended a party. Local police on routine patrol notice him in the car and stop to check the situation. The youth has had a can of beer at the party. The police give him a field breathalyzer test, and he fails the zero tolerance law. Upon searching the vehicle, the police find a friend's e-cigarette or vape. The youth was referred to youth assistance for diversion as opposed to going to juvenile court for drug screening, monitoring, family counseling, and substance abuse awareness classes. A 9-year-old student, new to a local elementary school, unpredictably has outbursts of tears and anger. School staff want the child to focus on learning. The child is referred to youth assistance. where as the caseworker I learned that the child has had many losses in the past year. The child found his mother dead in her bed from an overdose and was taken away from the stepfather, who was the only person he knew as his dad, and his two half-siblings and their home. He was placed in the custody of a grandmother and now is in a new school in a different school district. He needs grief counseling and trauma counseling referrals that the school district wasn't aware of. A group of teenage girls shoplift a pregnancy test at a local store because one of them thinks that she's pregnant and is afraid to talk to her parents. Police refer them to youth assistance as a diversion alternative for counseling and guidance as opposed to sending them to juvenile court. These are true accounts of some young people who've received youth assistance services. Every day, children and youth are at risk due to life situations or their behaviors have been referred by parents, school staff, law enforcement, and other agencies to local youth assistance programs as a way to help turn their lives around. Back in the 1950s, the juvenile court and some superintendents in schools and local government officials formed youth assistance to avoid having young people who make poor choices and have difficult life situations from being thrown into the juvenile justice system. Huron Valley Youth Assistance, with others, strive to provide two levels of prevention through our programs: primary prevention and secondary prevention. Primary prevention programs are designed to and directed by local citizens from the school, within the school district, who serve on the Youth Assistance Board of Directors. These services include skill-building scholarships, which allow children to participate in recreational programs where they develop skills and talents in adult-supervised, structured free time activities. Summer camp scholarships. Family education programs, which include parenting programs, the Adolescent Substance Abuse Prevention Awareness Program, and seminars on current social issues that face the families, as well as an annual Youth Recognition Awards event, which honors young people for their volunteerism and positive contributions to the community. As casework staff, we are the primary source of secondary prevention, providing casework and counseling services, responding to specific problems facing young people and their families. Casework services are offered at a low-cost, short-term, family-centered approach to the youth and families that live within the school district, and as needed are referred for other services such as long-term counseling, mental health evaluation, medical referrals, and other resources. Back in the 1950s and continuing on to today, youth assistance has received funding from the local municipalities and the school district, in addition to the county that provides casework staff and supervision for the program, through intergovernmental agreements that were established back at that time. Funds from the township's general fund would join with those from the other local sponsors that were previously mentioned. These funds provide for the operational budget, allowing for office support staff and the operation of a local office. Any additional funds for direct services and programs have been obtained through grants and fundraisers. 1 year of youth assistance services for a child costs $620. 1 year of mental health costs over $2,800. A year of juvenile probation costs almost $24,500. And a year of juvenile correction detention costs $178,500. A year of youth assistance at approximately $1.70 a day versus a year with corrections at the cost of $4.90 a day. Which do we want as a society? Benjamin Franklin, one of our forefathers, once said, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." And this is true for the dollars that go to our youth. I encourage you to consider funding Huron Valley Youth Assistance so that the office operations continue in our local community to serve our families. Once again, I thank you for your support of children, youth, and families, and encourage you to consider taking a closer look at the supplemental information that was provided by the local Huron Valley Youth Assistance Board.
Thank you for the very
Thank you.
important work you do.
Any of the board members have a question? Mr. Rome?
Well, no, I just wanted to state that one of the reasons that we've balked at contributing is because in order to spend township dollars, we have to have a public purpose. And that's kind of been our question for a while. So we do have a memo now that everyone should have gotten a copy of from the Corporate Council of Oakland County. And that memo is basically stating that I don't need it, thanks. But support of this group does provide a public purpose. I certainly support the program. I know it's a great program, and it looks like majority of the kids involved are White Lake White Lake teens.
Yeah, 38% or something like that.
And approximately 38% over the course of the last 6 years. It's been between 35 to 38% of the total number of young people that are serviced by Huron Valley Youth Assistance. And for the public that's not aware, unlike in adult crimes, if a person is accused of wrongdoing by law enforcement, they are tried in the jurisdiction in which they were allegedly doing the offense. The other thing is with juveniles, it goes back to their home county and their home community. So even if a young person from White Lake goes to Charlevoix or someplace and shoplifts, that case, the juvenile court there has the option of deferring it back to the local county, and some of our referrals come right from the juvenile court intake. You know, if a young person steals a candy bar up north, they don't want to necessarily on the first offense take them through juvenile court.
Question. So right now you're looking for support for the administrative costs, correct?
Yes.
How about the programs themselves, and where does most of that money come from?
The programs themselves, that comes from fundraising events, grant writing, and this board in the past has been the fiduciary of community development block grant funds that have funneled into youth assistance to service youth in the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board members? Mr. Ruggles?
I'm in favor of this. I'm just wondering what fund would the money come out of, and how do we figure out how much we would like to donate?
Well, we've already received a request based on their cost of their services.
I see that amount. Is that what is agreeable to the board?
I believe that's an agreeable amount.
Well, that needs to go up in the form of a motion, but as far as the fund, we would make the request out of the general fund.
Out of the general fund.
Okay.
I just have one thing I want to do before I go forward. Comment?
Share that amount? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was 7,000.
$916.
Yeah, we're getting there. Chief, would you like to make a comment about this program and what your involvement's been, or when you refer over, or things that your knowledge? Seeing as that you are sometimes the gateway to this?
So when I was a student resource officer at Lakeland High School, I used this program quite a bit. It's a successful program. I know Detective Snow or Liaison Officer Snow uses this program quite a bit. It's effective. It keeps the individuals, the youth, from getting into the court system. It gives them kind of a one-time chance, and as long as they're successful at the program, they get in essence, a get out of jail card for free. So kids make mistakes. I think this program is vital for those kids who make mistakes and the ones who want to correct the actions through this program, correct the actions. And if not, I know that a lot of the individuals or some of the individuals who don't successfully complete the youth assistance program get sent to the court if they don't complete the program. So it's their way of getting that extra step or extra chance to correct their actions.
So a worthwhile cause?
Yes, sir.
That's all I needed to hear, Chief. Thank you very much.
Supervisor?
Mr. Powell?
At budget time, this board was told that we provide community development block grant funds towards this cause. Do we still provide that to the youth assistance?
At this time, no, because it's not in our programming, and it's not that simple of just changing gears. You have to rewrite your programming and resubmit. So the money this time around would come much more rapidly from the general fund expenditure. And in the future, we can look at, if it's a priority of this board to support this program, then we will revisit our grant process.
Then it was also recommended, or at least it was told, that there was a line item in the police department for this expenditure, and that's why it wasn't included in last year's budget as well, that it's in the line item in the police department but never been used for that yet. Is that still available to us?
That is correct, and I don't believe that our millage language allows us to give money to an outside entity.
Well, that was the excuse that was given for this board not to as well. And so I'm wondering what this corporate counsel state memo says about that versus us giving
I
it.
can't explain what it would say in regard to the police department, but because I do have the definition from the council is regarding the township itself as a whole. I'm not going to speculate or assume, okay?
Okay.
So with that being said, I would say that if this particular contribution should come from the general fund at this particular time, and we can look at this in our budget, which we will actually be looking at here very shortly for 2019, and have some conversation regarding that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
How do we initiate this process then? Just a motion of the board?
Well, I would like to make a motion that due to the fact that townships are authorized to combat juvenile delinquency under Michigan law, I would make a motion to authorize expenditure to support the YA program in the amount of $7,916. And that would be appropriated from the general fund.
I support that motion. Our youth are certainly worth investing in.
Agreed. Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much, and I would really like you to pass on to Don Green. Tell him I really appreciate his persistence in trying to get that clarification, because I reached out to him many times to get something I could put our teeth into. And we will take a look at our CBDG funds. I will talk with our CBG fund coordinator, and we'll take a look at that and see what we can do.
That would definitely help programming, and this
Correct.
will allow us to continue to retain our office staff and be able to operate our office, which now actually is located within White Lake in the Brooks Center, which used to be Brooks Elementary.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
I didn't know you were
I look
there.
forward to contact me.
Yes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or be part of any information gathering you might have for planning future budget proposals and so on.
Very good. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank
Okay, moving on, item 11, old business, second reading amendment of zoning ordinance. Mr. O'Neill.
Well, last time we met, we talked about the array of amendments that are before you. They were moved to second reading. I think I spoke with all of you at some point between that meeting and tonight, and I appreciate the feedback. It allowed me to go over some of these changes with you, and then also incorporate some changes that were requested by some of you as well. In front of you tonight is a 3-page document attached to an email that I had sent to you yesterday that in highlight included some changes that were discussed. It's actually kind of an excerpt. It's page 9, page 16, and page 28. The only thing I'd point you to on page 16, J, I should say item J at the bottom, it should be built, not build, to current road standards in that paragraph. But other than that, these are changes that were discussed that will help us control the location and impact on neighbors who have other neighbors that choose to do seasonal boat storage per this ordinance amendment, so that they have to get their permission if they're going to be on a private road down the street from them, which I think is a very good change. It also limits the number to 5 permits being issued at any time. So
Throughout the township.
Throughout the township. So we will have an opportunity if all 5 go out and everybody thinks we should have more, then we can come back and change it again. But once we have 10, we can't take them away. So I think kind of tiptoeing into this makes a great deal of sense. That was on 16. I guess I skipped 9. I think on page 9 there's been some discussion about item D, which deals with the number of overnight parking vehicles that can be parked overnight. And I think there might need to be some more exploration on that. So my recommendation tonight, after some discussion, is that this item D be removed from the amendment. Any motion to approve these amendments tonight and be sent back to the Planning Commission for further review and study. And then page 28 talks about portable sign locations, and previously the ordinance required that they be within 10 feet of a building entrance, and this change, this requested, says they can be no closer than 5 feet to the road right of way. And these would be temporary portable signs advertising sale or something like that.
Trying to make things a little more business friendly.
Mr. Supervisor, on that particular one, before I get into, since Sean brought that particular one up, there might be an easier way to define that. None of us know when we go out onto a roadway, let alone Mr. Hudson or somebody trying to enforce this, where that right-of-way line is. Every road right-of-way is different based upon the dedication of that roadway. I might suggest a modification of that language to state, and if I can just, that the sandwich signs be allowed no closer than 20 feet off the edge of pavement or the right-of-way, whichever is greater. So that means if somebody is walking within 10 feet of the edge of pavement, it's obvious. It's easy to mark off, pace off. If they're 35 feet off the edge of pavement, it meets that requirement. And really, you don't know where the right-of-way line is. So if it became an issue, we can't give permission to allow them to put a sign in the road right-of-way. But I think it should be easier to determine where he can and can't do it. So it might make some sense to define it from the edge of pavement instead of a right-of-way line, but in no way closer than the right-of-way.
From an enforcement standpoint, that might be
True, but you still have the same dilemma. You don't know exactly where the right-of-way
No,
line is.
but at least you can have a defined most
Definition.
roadways are 21 to 24 feet wide, and it's a 60-foot road right-of-way. So you have a 15 to 16-foot distance between the edge of pavement and the right-of-way line. That's most roads. On bigger roads, then M59 goes from 120 to 180 feet, and so you're kind of guessing there. But at least in this case, it puts it at least 50 or 5 feet inside the property line on a normal 60-foot right-of-way, and so you're safe 99% of the time, and only those rare cases is it problematic. So there might be some enforcement benefits to having a defined distance from a measurable spot.
Very good.
I don't object to that.
Mr. Lilly?
I agree with what Mike said. The right-of-ways are all different. lengths and for enforcement procedures, it's much easier to take the side of the road or a curb or something that
Where the pavement is.
has some
Right.
definition.
It's a
to
defined
it.
area.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So no closer than 20 feet.
Of the pavement?
Or outside the right-of-way, which is ever's greater, and that gives us some legal definition as well.
20 feet.
20 feet to the road's edge.
20 feet of pavement or
outside the road right-of-way, whichever's greater.
Or okay. How far outside? So 20 feet from the road's edge, or
outside of the road right-of-way, whichever's greater. Because
okay, you're saying that it could be to the edge of the right of way.
Yeah, who's going to define that? You're not going to stop and say, don't move, or I'm calling a surveyor in to determine where that is.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so 20 feet off pavement or outside road right-of-way, whatever is greater.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's reasonable.
Leaving the rest? Or are we getting rid of this no closer?
That's going away.
Mike,
yeah.
you had defined yours as what is greater, either the right-of-way or the pavement. Just a suggestion that maybe we say from the edge of the pavement or the right-of-way, but in no case less than 20 feet.
It reads, it could be, you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's the
So
same
it
thing,
doesn't
yeah.
matter to me.
Yeah, yeah. Either way, makes the same thing, okay. Yeah, is there anything else anybody has? Mr. Lilly? You have a question?
While we're having the discussion, the only other item I had, maybe Sean had mentioned that, was that the exception to that Part 8, 4.9 of Section D that needs to go back for reconsideration.
Yeah, that'll be removed from
That's the only
this.
other item that I had.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I had two items. They're not super critical. And Sean was very, very helpful in going through this ordinance. He and I go through these ordinances a great deal more than we ever care to. But on page 14, the top of the page, we're in PUDs and cluster options in these sections here. And at the top of that page 14, under I, it says a density bonus of up to 15%, and between 15 and 25%, you're allowed a density bonus. I see no benefit whatsoever to have the lower limit. In other words, it's putting you in a range there, but we don't care how small of a benefit they take. We care about the maximum benefit. So you're forcing them to stay between two lines, and we're limiting them to even taking a benefit. So in my suggestion on that one is it should be up to 25% and eliminate the lower end of that limit. So I see no benefit to that whatsoever. And then in that same line, it says 15% and 25% down. Down in the middle of that, there really shouldn't be a maximum part of that, just the minimum. So they're giving us a defined section, and we should just go up to a certain and down to a minimum and not require them to fit between a limit. Sean and I kind of went over that, and there's another section that has that as well. And Sean and I went over that, and I think it's on page 11 at the bottom.
It is.
But the bottom line is, it doesn't change anything, and it really allows a property owner, the suggestion I made, somebody could come in and say, you know what, I want to put 45% of my property into open space. This ordinance prevents that. It says, no, you can only go to a maximum of 25%. Well, why don't we allow them to put whatever they want with a minimum of 15%? Instead of limiting them to what they
Sean,
might
what was
want
the
to do.
thought process behind that?
I don't know, but it was a good catch because the cap should be removed. Why would we prohibit someone from providing more open space?
Yeah, that's what
And so I completely agree with everything that Mr. Powell has brought up.
Okay. Otherwise, they're great changes in my opinion to the zoning ordinance.
Well, the other catch that Mr. Powell had that I appreciate as well is on page 1. He made a note that under site area, net site area, it refers to unbuildable areas such as public rights-of-way. Well, it should also say private rights-of-way. So it should just read public and private rights-of-way, utility easements, and protected wetlands. So that was left out, so I appreciate that. And I think that change should be made as well. So with those changes and the omission of the section that Mr. Lilly mentioned, which is Part 8, which is on page 9, dealing with overnight vehicle parking, I recommend that the rest of these amendments be adopted.
Move forward.
Again, with that one exception referenced by Mr. Lilly.
Okay.
To make, and I gave them the section
Okay.
for the zoning ordinance.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, looking for a motion, Mr. Powell?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the zoning ordinance amendments as presented by the Planning Commission, subject to the amendments discussed here at the board meeting tonight, and not including Part 8, which is a section of 4.9 of the zoning ordinance, item D.
Good enough for you, Mr. O'Neill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a motion, looking for support?
Support.
Good.
I think Mr. Lilly got, I don't know, who got that first?
I'll give it to Terry.
You got it to Terry?
Roman.
Okay.
I already wrote your name.
All right. Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you.
And I
It's
thank the
all.
Planning Commission and staff.
Yeah, and
Yes.
thank you
Incredible
for
job.
your support
a
and
lot
your
of work to
feedback
go
on
through
this.
all that.
Thank you.
Incredible job.
Lot of redlining.
Just the notes were this thick, so you can imagine how thick our zoning was.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Item 11B, dangerous buildings. As all of you know, we have had a dangerous building hearing regarding multiple buildings located on Gale Island. That process has resulted in notifications and cost estimates, and the board approving action to move forward. Upon this action and notification, there has been a little bit of light shed upon it, that for the time being, I would like to have the board consider extending the deadline a period of till next month's meeting to allow the owner of the property and adjacent neighbors to work out a potential property purchase, of which the potential purchasers have agreed to comply with whatever necessary means for the building department and whatever agreements I have to be done to minimize, eliminate the dangerous buildings, and could simplify this entire process. And I'm looking to just extend this until next month, and if that will give that time to work that out, if it doesn't work out, then we'd have the ability to move forward.
You gonna make that motion?
So that motion would be something along the lines of motion to extend the deadline for demolition and work with the property owners or future property owners to demolish without township involvement if possible.
Exactly.
motion?
I like that
I heard
motion
you.
with what
Get
Lisa
all that,
said,
Amy?
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
That was what Andrea said.
Yeah, I'm totally.
An address?
Pardon?
Is there an address for that building?
Yes, I don't have the specifics in front of me. They're on Gale Island. It's very peculiar numbers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, for that was for 30 days, right?
Yes.
And I'll
Right.
support that.
Okay. We have motion, we have support, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, okay. We're going now into trustee comments. Andrea Voorhees.
The Fisk Farm has been a very active place lately. I was able to participate in the Nerf games supported by the Huron Valley Community Coalition. I personally wasn't able to participate because I was too old. But 3 older ladies and myself, being the youngest, were having fun with our Nerf guns, as you see in the social media. Also, the month of July is a patriotic open house. at the farm tomorrow night, or tomorrow I should say, between 1 and 4 is the last one for the month of July. I personally thought it was very cool because my great uncle's uniform from World War II was in there. His uniform and supplies actually, like in a sense, moved out of White Lake. Both my great aunt and uncle moved back or died, and it came back to Michigan. Even with, so I thought it was really cool.
You said that they
moved out of
they
White
died
Lake,
and moved back. I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, his memorabilia came back because he was a White Lake. Sorry.
That sounded a little. That's all right. I think we knew what you meant, Andrew.
Right.
So like I said, that was pretty cool. Like I said, the hours are 1 to 4, and you'll even get to see my awesome Rosie the Riveter outfit that you saw in there.
What was the date of that?
It's tomorrow between 1 and 4. My thoughts and prayers go out to the family of the victim of the drowning on White Lake and Highland. I could see it from my house, all the rescue stuff. We even heard the helicopters going by. Everyone in White Lake was very great about looking under their docks, looking under their boats. I can't even imagine. As my husband and I were talking about it tonight, we were like, whenever you're on the boat, wear your life jacket or you're getting off the boat. That was all both of our answers. And I just wanted to send some kudos out to Rick for his appointment to the SEMCOG organization and the Legislative Task Force. SEMCOG is the Southeast Michigan Council of Government.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you. I'd also like to start out with my sincere condolences to the family that was affected by the tragic drowning on White Lake. Certainly my thoughts and prayers are with their family and their loved ones. Please be safe on the lake. Next, I'd like to acknowledge the retirement of our library director, Larry Ostrowski, and thank him for his excellent service. It was an honor to work alongside him when I was on the library board, and we've also worked on many committees in the township as well. Him and I have done the Easter egg hunt and mini golf and the tree lighting and Optimist Club, and he was all over the place, and he did a wonderful job representing the library. I want to congratulate him on 10 years of service as director for the White Lake Township Library. And I would really appreciate if we could stand and give him a round of applause and thank him for his service.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. I appreciate you all joining in on that. I'd like to wish Larry well on his retirement and hope he certainly enjoys that. And next, I'd like to mention that the next library board meeting is Wednesday, July 25th at 6:45. And lastly, I just want to encourage all residents to make sure they get out and vote on August 7th. I sincerely believe it is your civic duty to be an informed voter. We have 3 millages on the ballot this year: fire, police, and library. They are not tax increases, they are renewals only. Please do your homework, please be educated, please ask questions, and please vote. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Liz's comments. Make sure everybody gets out and vote on August 7th. It's important to get out there and speak your mind. I'd also like to mention, I didn't know this, Andrea probably does, the White Lake Historical Society, they do a, what do they call it, a bus tour, is it?
I knew, but I just wanted you to give yourself your own kudos.
Oh, yeah. So it's July 31st, and they go and they visit different locations, so they'll be stopping by my family's estate, and I'll be there to give a little talk, so if anybody's a member, I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Handing out corn or anything, or
if it keeps raining, yeah.
It might be, yeah.
I know the bus is filled. So
is it? Yeah. How many people is that hold? Quite a few, huh?
Whatever the buses hold, I really have
Is it
no
just
idea.
one bus?
I think there's 2, right?
2 buses?
I would say there's 2, but stuff like that I do not know.
I got to know how many shirts they have. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Powell.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I certainly want to request our residents get out and vote again on August 7th. It's really critical, and I'm going to go one step beyond that and say please vote yes for the police and fire millage. This township will be in sorry shape if the police and fire millages don't pass, and so please support your local police and fire. I also wanted to give kudos to the staff. This electronic agenda is fantastic. It's about time. It worked great. And so I appreciate the township.
We're still getting the bugs out of it.
Yes, but it's very good, and we probably each saved 3 trees by doing it this way. The only thing I ask is maybe the staff can do something to, at least on the minutes, or and maybe a couple other items, if they could put it in some kind of editable form.
Only you.
Whether the minutes could be in Word or something, so we can highlight it, change the colors, increase the font size, so that we don't have to print them out in order to make suggested changes. So that might be something that can be improved as well. And then I know Chief said that he is celebrating his 14th wedding anniversary.
Yes, sir.
Last week was my 43rd wedding anniversary, and so kudos to my wife as well, putting up with me all these years. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. You always get the last word at night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mr. Lilly.
Not too much. We're busy in the office, obviously, with absentee ballots, and certainly looks like the way ballots have been coming in that we're going to have a busy time for both the primary and general elections. Just to report again, and I said I would try to make a report every month on the library. On 6/18 of this year, bills were presented in the amount of $1,208,975.13, and those have been paid. Also on 6/29 of this year, bills were submitted in the amount of $199,346.61 for McCarthy and Smith, and those have been paid for a total of $1,408,321.74. So
Very good.
I've got to say we're very pleased with initially to get started up, and the miscellaneous bills in the property purchase and stuff was a little bit difficult trying to get both of our accounting systems together, but the McCarthy and Smith, the general contractor, I tell you, his paperwork is meticulous, and both Elaine and I are very pleased with that, which is really the bulk of the project. Probably a little over $6 million worth of construction, so we're pleased with that process so far.
Thank you.
I would also like to say that for my staff, both on in the clerk's office, appreciate the ladies. They're really busy and working good together, and particularly again in accounting. Both Elaine and Dawn, we went through a lot of work for the auditing process, and now we're getting into this new chart of accounts and numbering system that is rather a difficult and a long procedure, but making good progress, and I appreciate their help. So.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Roman.
Last but not least, oh, you haven't gone yet.
I haven't gone yet.
I just want to thank everyone for attending the board meeting tonight. Thank you for your involvement. Special thanks to Gail Ennis. Gail, thanks for addressing our board. Much appreciated. That's all I had right now.
That's it? Wow. Okay. Well, let's see here. I didn't have a lot to say, but I got a little bit more to say now. Okay. First of all, the technology is moving forward. We are trying to implement changes as I was intending to do when I came in the house.
Yes.
Like I say, we've saved a few trees now. We'll save some in the future. I'd like to thank Mr. O'Neill for his push in this direction. And it is a means that allows not just the board, but the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and any of the other entities within the township to have all this information at their fingertip. So it makes it a lot easier to do. And I think it'll make Mr. Ruggles, your process will be easier too at the Planning Commission meetings. So hopefully that'll move us forward. We are looking on the edges of the Milford vaping ordinance regarding minors. It came to my attention just a short time ago, and actually the chief sent it over to me, and he and I have just been kind of going in different directions, and I miss him and he misses me. So we're actually going to sit down and talk about that with council, and we'll see what we can do. And I don't believe you'll have any difficulty with this at all. Simply, I believe it's beneficial to the community as a whole. So, one of my jobs at this position is I am the public safety director, as well as a township supervisor. And there are persons that know that, and there are persons that don't know that. So one of the things that I get to do is I get to hear the calls when things go bad. I get to call at 2 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday night, twice within one weekend here recently, about things that go bad, go real bad. And it's my job to try to figure out how to prevent different problems from happening. So when I have an opportunity to pursue safety, I do so. That's priority is the safety of the public. It's first responders, fire, police, ambulance service, school buses, our senior bus. All of these things are all important, and that takes us to our roads. If going after money to try to improve roads in this township is self-serving, guilty, okay? Because I am determined to try to solve what problems we have here. You have to take steps. A sewer system goes down the main road in our community. A couple public officials live on that, just on that road that it happened to go down. Was it solely for their benefit that that sewer system went down? Of course not. Historically, it is the case. If we have the ability of the grant to go through in December, which is going to be in excess of $1 million if we as a township are successful for the grant that I've gone after. And it is we, not just I. It's we have gone after as a team. If this comes to fruition, that will be over $1 million that we will have of state money to benefit our community. Is that self-serving? Guilty. Okay? These are things that is my job to do. It is my job to pursue the safety of this township by whatever means necessary. I will not apologize for it. I will not backtrack for it. And I owe no one an explanation other than the fact that I am the supervisor of this township and I am the public safety director, and that's what I see fit.
Okay, good.
Reference to Bogey Lake Road. Mr. Powell and I have had numerous conversations, regarding the approaches of the west side of Cooley Lake Road and, excuse me, not Cooley, yes, Cooley Lake Road to the west off Bogey. And then Mr. Lilly and I did an inspection on that site, and I guess we really didn't quite realize just how hazardous it was until we were standing there. And we found out, almost witnessed just how hazardous it was. So we've talked about trying to improve things in this community. If we sit around and we wait for the state to come just hand us stuff, it's not going to happen. The county to hand us stuff, it's not going to happen. We have to go out and we have to chase things. We have to try to get these by hook or by crook or whatever you want to call it. So be it. It's the only way we're going to make improvements. We want to improve those intersections because they're hazardous intersections. Just by Mr. Lilly and I having a conversation with the superintendent, they have come back to us and offered to pay for the engineering, the soil balancing, the draining, the curbing, any necessary right-of-way or engineering related to that, and asked us to participate in the cost of the asphalt. Mr. Powell will tell you that's the cheapest end of the deal.
Oh, yes.
If we can do this in strategic locations throughout the township where we have problems, where we have a history of problems, we will slowly, one by one, try to eliminate or minimize these safety issues. And they are there. And again, sitting on a couple of these corners and watching the cars go whipping by, and I said Terry and I were there and we almost saw a couple of rear enders just while we were there. So we have a lot of issues. We don't have a lot of straight roads in this township. Folks that visit me from the Detroit metropolitan area have no way, they don't know where the hell I live, okay, because there's no straight roads here. even 59 is only straight for a short distance and it curves. I said, the compass on my car is telling me I'm going north on 59, now I'm going northeast, now I'm going west. Where the hell am I going? Welcome to the lakes area and all the problems that we have with it. Mr. Lilly and I has also requested and put pressure on the Oakland County Road Commission to address Union Lake Road Corridor and Elizabeth Lake Road Corridor. We've asked them to be as aggressive as they can, and we've also told them we would like to be in a position to participate if need be. Your tax dollars get spent at the state level. They will go farther if we make a participation from the local level whenever we can. This township is fiscally responsible. Money is not frivolously spent here. This board is very, very cautious of what it does and how it spends its money, and it questions it, and that's exactly what everyone should do, is question where it is. The worst thing in the world, as Margaret Thatcher said, socialism's a great thing until you run out of spending other people's money. And last I checked, we live in the good old US of A, and it's a democratic society, and therefore we have to try to do the best we can for all we have. With that, I say good night, God bless, and thank you for attending this meeting.
Belated birthday to Carol Burkhart. It was
Yes,
last
Carol,
Friday.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Sorry, Carol.
Mr. Supervisor, thank you for acknowledging and complimenting this board on being fiscally responsible and conservative, because we do try, so thank you. I
We are.
appreciate that.
We are very, it's a very good board. It's a pleasure to serve with them. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session, approval to recess into closed session to consider attorney-client privileges communication according to the MCL 15.268H. Roll call vote. Oh, I need a
I'll
motion.
support that.
Motion, support, roll call vote.
Supported, Roman?
I'm impressed, Terry. You
Gotta go back up to the top.
John, do you want us to shut these down?
Scott Ruggles?
Yes.
Mike Paul?
Yes.
Andrea Voorhees?
Yes.
Liz Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Cowell?
Yes.
Cowell, I'd like to ask for a 10-minute recess.
There's one more.
Let's do the
one more
second one.
motion.
Okay.
Okay,
Item 13B, approval to recess into closed session to consult with attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with the Commerce Township versus White Lake Township versus Huron Valley School District, Oakland County Circuit Court Case Number 2016-155404-CK in accordance with MCL 15.268E.
Support. Oh, support.
Mr. Roman, support. Roll call vote.
Back to the top.
Okay, Mr. Cowell?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Andrea Voorhees?
Yes.
Mike Paul?
Yes.
Liz Smith?
Yes.
Make a motion to have a 10-minute recess.
That's a motion.
I'm making a...
second.
I'll second that.
Declaration.
Declaration.